dopo questa piccola suspense, io invito qui sul palco la giurata della selezione Veneto, Elena Griggio. Un applauso. We will conduct the interview in English, so there won't be any translation in Italian. So nothing. Well, welcome Elena. Welcome here to Lago Film Fest. How are you?
Fine, thank you very much. I'm super glad that I managed to arrive at the end today. So cool. And I would like to say that there is Emilia as well of the same category of the jury, and that Rachele will arrive as well for later on.
Okay, so the first question is I wanted to talk about your first experience here in Lago, because yes, you're the first time juror here in Lago, but you had a past here in the last edition. So I wanted to ask you, what was your track record coming through Lago, and what was your experience in general because you're not formed specifically in cinematography, or actually last year we had your movie that was your first experience. So I wanted to speak a little about how you came to cinematography coming from theater.
I met Lago as public in the last few years, and it was always a very strong experience because I like the context, I like the kind of realities that are welcome in this specific and wonderful scenario. So simply as public at the beginning, and I was also very happy to know that nearby Venice there was such a huge organization dedicated to cinema, which I always liked as public mostly. As you said already, I mostly work in theater as director and actress, and I work with Teatro Valdoca. It's a theater reality from Cesena in Emilia-Romagna, and I had the chance to meet different kind of actors because the director doesn't have how can I say, a favorite genre of actor and actresses. So I had the chance to meet a lot of different kind of artists in these years I worked with this theater company. What happened with the first film, the one that I presented last year, not 2 years ago, I filmed it 2 years ago, I presented last year in Lago, was that I met Ondina Quadri and Marcus Richter, two actors which works both in cinema and theater. And after we worked in Teatro Valdoca for the project Giuramenti, I asked them if they were interested to help me to transform a script I created for theater in a short film. So we talked a lot about it. They've been part of the process actually, not only actors which were ready to go at action. And it was very nurturing because Ondina had way more experience than me in cinema, and Marcus brought a lot of his experience in performing art in the film itself. So what happened was that the three of us, plus the director of the photography, Matteo Delai, and the editor, and the sound guy, went to this very unstable platform in the middle of the lagoon in Pellestrina, and we filmed the film that we presented last year, and that luckily we were super happy about. It won the competition of Veneto at Lago. The transformation between, sorry, it's a bit long. It'll be, sorry, you don't have to translate. Okay, sorry. The transformation between theater and cinema, it's very intense. It's completely another kind of language, and it's interesting to see, just to make it short, how cinema can go very, very close to some way to look at things, while theater constantly puts you in the same position, and you have to see what's happening with the bodies, with the space, on a point which is always the same. So you have to manage with the timing, with the spaces in a way which is completely different in cinema, and it has been a huge school for me, very much.
Yeah, it's funny because actually Matteo Delai was here a few days ago, because he was the editor of the Inutile al Mondo that was in the national competition. So we actually had the wonderful experience with talking with him as well. So the fact that you missed is such a shame, but it's also interesting that we were able to create like a circle around the guests and the jurors of this year. So nothing, a little point. And yeah, so coming from the theater and coming well, yes, because in the beginning of cinema, the theater and the cinema were disciplines and were artistic fields that in a way were having dialogue with each other. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, Truffaut was one of the first. Truffaut was one of the first that saying that the cinema was like an evolution of theater in a way, through filming and through the cameras. So in a way, it's interesting to see the point of view of someone working with it. So what I wanted to ask is, if I'm not mistaken, you're now working on your first feature length, if I'm not mistaken. So what I wanted to say, if you think that theater and cinema will now be a symbiosis in your career, and or do you still separate the two works, and do you feel like more on one side or one on the other, or like I don't know, maybe one day you feel as an actress and one day you feel as a director?
I feel mostly as a director of theater, even though the years as actress were necessary to develop the kind of sight that I'm still applying when I direct a film, either a theatrical show. It's interesting because during the pandemic, I noticed that it was necessary, requested, and also very complex as a matter. The fact that theater had to go through a process of filming, either because some companies I knew needed to go on streaming, either because other companies I met didn't want at all to transform the theatrical process in a cinematographic process. So the two languages needed to have a dialogue during the pandemic period, which is still different from the idea of creating a film which is supporting the theatrical work. So it's still very alive, this kind of subject. About the feature film, this is a subject which is fully alive because the the co-producer which are helping us to carry on with the post-production project told us, we do really hope we won't go for a very theatrical film. As you will see, it will be terribly theatrically, even too much, but is really part of my story getting through the process of creation. I probably need to be for way longer in a cinematic process to develop that kind of agility, to be agile as it is in a film. I like that. It's something that I appreciate, but I understand that probably can be a bit strange also. Maybe some of you saw the film Un piccione seduto sul ramo riflette sull'esistenza.
A pigeon sat on a branch reflecting on life.
Yeah. What it is, the theatricality in a film is super interesting as subject for me. So we will see how it will develop I'm not comparing myself to my work on to the Golden Lion winning prize. Just saying that the theatricality can happen in many ways, and is an interesting subject for me. And I hope that developing the feature film that we shot in Venice in the Teatrino of Palazzo Grassi will give us a chance to have a discussion about it very much. If I do belong mostly to theater, even though I profoundly love cinema, but I still feel that with cinema I will always be constantly in the feeling of enjoying it, looking at. And while I do theater, I feel that I belong to a process of timing and space which is closer to who I am today. So let's see.
Well, thank you very much. And well, if I may, I wanted to ask you now if, well, we know it's really theatrical movie, but in the same way, we all wanted to ask you if you could speak a little more about the movie, and then I would love to ask you and to answer for us what was your experience being, if I'm not mistaken, first time juror in a cinema field, the first time juror in a festival, and how was the struggles and the challenges of being a juror in this competition, in this edition of the fest, and what you came out of it. What was the thing that you were able to get out of this experience without telling who won?
I'm very grateful, very happy, and very possibility to be part of the jury. Also because my experience, in fact, as we know, is not too long in terms of working in cinema. And I know that the point of view I'm bringing is the one of somebody which doesn't have a over technical skills or knowledge about what a film can be. I know something according with my experience with Havens, the short film of last year, and Reality, the feature film which is coming soon, next year probably. But of course it's just my own experience. So what I could see also in the films which were in the competition for the Veneto Prize, they are all so different. And in each occasion I was like, wow, this must have been complicated for this reason, this is interesting because of that. It's always a school for me to see something different each time. So it has been a great occasion, great chance, the first time in fact, and it's also complicated to give your motivation because you have to trust what you feel, but in the same time you must have a dialogue with the film itself and also with the other members of the jury, which was super important in our case. And I like that also because we are all, the three of us are very different, and it's interesting to see how different careers and different story life makes you approach differently to a film. So it's very enriching, and I'm very, very glad of this chance. You wanted to know something about the feature, right? Yeah.
If we can.
Yeah, of course. It's a dialogue between an analog approach to things. In fact, the film is in black and white. We framed it as a Super 8 film, so with round coordinate. And though the story is about a reality show in a dystopian situation where people have to compete to be coherently a certain psychological figure, an aggressive human being, a very kind human being, a bit strange human being, the funny one. They are very, very defined as a psychological character, and they are competing for the most coherent and recognizable kind of human being, so recognizable that they turn to be fake, but they are very, very clear. And the whole dystopian scenario is about how long can you last being something which is clear, absolutely, with no doubt about who you are, with no shadows, no shades, nothing, and being interesting and pleasant, because the mechanic is like a role game. And it's something that I kind of saw also sometimes in the social media, the creation of a persona which is more reassuring than the human being that you are. And without making it too philosophical, the competition is like a little video game through a reality show, and we will see the story of the three finalists competing to also to be human again somehow, and the inner dynamic that they have in the house. So this is a bit what I can say so far.
Thank you very much for giving us details about the movie. Thank you very much for telling your experience here in Lago. And well, I can't stress enough how thankful we are for you to be here and how fruitful was the collaboration with you. So un applauso per Elena Griggio.